What an awful loss. That's just a bad, bad loss. You lose to the Sixers 117 to 104. They didn't have Embiid. They didn't have Paul George. They played last night, and you lose and score only 17 points in the fourth quarter. The Kings are self-destructing right in front of your eyes, and the season is slipping away. Oklahoma City and Minnesota still ahead on this road trip. You're looking at a 1-5 road trip. You're looking at a bad, bad, bad stretch.
Do you know what the Sixers' home record was coming into tonight, Grant? You want to take a
I
guess?
think they were 8-14 or 8-13.
8-13.
Yeah.
Yep. 1-6 on the second night of back-to-backs. Didn't matter. Look, they're professionals. Once they get their second wind, the game is on, and I'm with you. This is one of the worst losses of the season, start to finish. Midway through the third quarter, Grant, the Kings got a 12-point lead. From that point on, I believe they went 6 of 31 until about the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the end of the third quarter was a disaster for Sacramento.
Grant, 3 of the 4 ends of the quarters were disasters for the Kings. Just atrocious.
Yep. Well, I don't even know what else to say other than this is one of the 2 or 3 worst losses of the year. Do you agree?
Yeah, hands down. Hands down.
And especially based on the circumstances, knowing where you are in the standings, the Fox distraction, and anyone that doesn't think this is a distraction is naive, okay? It is a distraction, and I don't know what's going to happen between now and the trade deadline, but I don't expect the Kings to win any more games on this trip.
Yeah, I would be surprised. They play the Thunder traditionally pretty well. Maybe they'd bounce back, but with this Fox stuff looming and hanging over the team's head, I'm kind of leaning towards you, partner.
I don't know. If you can't beat Philadelphia and you barely beat Brooklyn, I don't know how you're going to go in and win at Oklahoma City.
Well, if you don't use Domantas Sabonis like the Kings did tonight, Grant, he had 1 shot in the second quarter.
I don't understand it.
Shot in the third quarter. And 1 shot in the fourth quarter.
He had 6 field goal attempts. How does that happen? 39 minutes, he took 6 shots. How does that happen?
And Grant, Yabusele's the biggest guy on the court.
Yep.
The Kings had a size advantage tonight as well.
I mean, I'm with you on that. That is so puzzling to me. It's that's a bad, bad loss. I don't know how else to say it. And, you look at the box and you look at the 3-point shooting, which was just abysmal again.
Awful.
24%, Ryan. 10 of 41.
Absolutely awful. Yeah, they could not, and they got good looks too. Keon Ellis was wide open a couple of times. There were a couple that were forced, but overall good looks. I think the overarching concern for me, and Doug Christie shares some blame on this one too. I did not like the defensive game plan very rarely, and I can't believe I'm doing it on his birthday, Napes. I'm going against Jerry. I did not like the double on Maxey right out of the gate. It didn't make sense with everybody else that the 76ers had on the floor. And if you have to zone a team as much as the Kings zoned a depleted Sixers team,
that's bad,
and still get beat, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
And here's another aspect of this team right now. Devin Carter, your first-round pick, barely plays anymore. I mean,
it's a great point.
He played 3 minutes in this game.
It's an excellent point. Doug Christie is searching for those minutes. Like Keon, and we went back to Keon last game. He only played 17 minutes, and we're like, oh, should it have been more? Probably. But Devin, Grant, he's a rookie. He missed the first half of the season. He had no training camp.
But I know, but he's not really part of the rotation right now for all intents and purposes, is what I'm seeing.
Well, Grant, what is the rotation? Doug McDermott, up until being sick, made his way back into the rotation.
Well, again, we've talked about how bad the Sacramento bench is.
Yeah,
it's just terrible. We invite your phone calls on a bad night. And now you're only a game over 500. You're going to wait and see what the teams around you do. But it really doesn't matter what the teams around you do if you play like this.
Yeah, you gotta sack up, you gotta nut up, and you're going into Oklahoma City and then Minnesota. And Minnesota's starting to find their way a little bit, Napes.
Yeah, they are. They're currently playing against Phoenix, so we'll keep an eye on that game. It's 49-42 with 4.5 left to go in the first half. That game is in Phoenix. Dallas is 10 up on New Orleans on the road, so that would further move the Kings down in the standings. But again, I don't really think it matters what anybody else around them is doing. You can't just hope that everyone around you is going to lose, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
No, not where they're at. And they need to be playing above their ability on most nights. For this team to get into the play-in and playoffs, it's got to be much better than tonight. Let's open it up to you. The link that is floating around in the chat, just click that, and we will bring you on. We'll start with Sacktown Mike.
Yeah, I had a question for Grant.
Yep.
Do Black Lives Matter?
You want that?
All lives matter, every single one. All lives matter could not be factual if the lives of Black people did not matter. So you couldn't say all lives matter if Black lives didn't matter, because then that would be a false statement. All lives matter, every single one. Did I answer that? Yeah, I think we did. Can we move on?
I think you got that.
Yeah.
Come on, man. PK, get us back on track.
Hey, guys. Hey, Grant.
Hi there.
Ryno. Wow. I think reality just hit us smack in the face. The fact that we're not that good. We're not that good. And, we had that win streak that we weaseled our ways through, but we're not a good team. I think eventually we have to accept the fact that we are just not built correctly. Something is wrong. Something is off. We're shooting 41 3-pointers. We're built like a mini Warriors team or something like that. Like on what planet are we a good 3-point shooting team? Eventually reality has to come to fruition where we can't shoot 41 threes and make 10. We can't shoot 23% at 3. And we can't keep jacking them up, whether it's Keegan, whether it's Herder, whether we just cannot hit open threes at the end of the day. But we keep shooting them.
Been going on all year.
Yeah.
All year.
It's just been that way all season, and that's why the Kings are basically a 500 team. And I said this a couple of days ago. I thought the Kings win streak was a little skewed. Actually, it was more than a little skewed. I thought it was very skewed because of the players that were missing from action on the other teams. I said that I didn't think the Kings were as good as the win streak showed, and nor did I think that they were as bad as they were playing under Mike Brown. In other words, there was a mixture. I think the Kings are somewhere in the middle of what they were playing under Coach Brown and what they did during the win streak when Doug took over. I think they're somewhere in the middle of that.
I think, you know what, also, Grant, I think Kings fans have expectations now. Maybe before, whatever the losing streak was before we hit a playoff and everyone was celebrating, we have, as Kings fans, expectations now. Doesn't matter who's the coach, doesn't matter who's the owner, doesn't matter who's playing. As Kings fans, we deserve certain expectations now, and we do not deserve to play like shit. Sorry for my French.
Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
BK.
Listen, we get the frustration. I mean, they're a 500 team, and I don't think this team's going to the playoffs. I don't see how they're going to go to the playoffs, although if they trade Fox and the makeup of this team changes overnight, it could work out very well, or it could not work out and you don't gain any ground in the standings. I don't have a crystal ball on that. So that could change the final 30 games of the season.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there. I think tonight was a bad example of what the Kings can be. I don't know how much the Fox stuff played into things. Certainly, you got to think there's a little bit of a factor there, but
But they didn't play well against Brooklyn.
they did not play well
They
against
didn't play well
Brooklyn
against
either.
Golden State.
Something has stopped them. You're right with the physicality. I don't know where Kings basketball that you and I and a lot of people calling my earlier show are all excited about, where it's back, you're diving for loose balls, you're going for 50-50s, you're turning defense into offense. It's disappeared. And Grant, is it partly due to Fox being in the starting lineup again? Maybe did we just get a small taste of it because simply you can't play that style with him in his hand? And sorry, I just got to say this right off the bat. Number one, for you, I can't see the chat. I'm having some issues here, so you've got to run the chat.
Okay.
But tonight was atrocious. Any talk about you got to be careful about where you throw De'Aaron Fox the ball when there's a turnover because of his hands. Any talk about the officials anytime the Kings are down, and especially talks about passes and the finesse. And if you don't have that finger, it's bullshit. So, although I'm not part of that product, I want to apologize to you as a Kings fan. You do not deserve to have your intelligence abused like that. That was an awful representation of a basketball call tonight. Sorry, had to say it, Nabes.
Well, I didn't watch the Kings telecast, but you must be right because I'm seeing that all over social media and I'm seeing it on my timeline and I see it almost every night. Let's just call it the way it is. The Sacramento Kings television broadcast has become an embarrassment. I mean, it has become an embarrassment because there were just too many people that feel the way you do, and they can't all be wrong. I have minority owners of the Sacramento Kings that I'm very close to that tell me they can't watch the games, that they have to watch the other team's feed. And I'm like, I get it. I understand. I'm hearing that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
If you know, and I've maintained Sacramento Kings fans are the smartest and most knowledgeable fans in the NBA. You know your basketball for the most part. You're not going to be catering passes or watching where you put a bounce pass because somebody's fingers hurt. That's not why the ball was turned over. Grant, an alley-oop to an NBA player might be the easiest pass in the NBA. Just put it somewhere around the rim and they will go get it. Not affected by a taped finger. So it's a joke. Yes.
And again, I'm going by everything that I see on my social media account, game after game after game after game after game, and text messages from people I know and emails from people that I don't know. The constant berating of the officials is absurd. It is embarrassing. And let's just call it, Katie is wrong most of the time.
Yes.
She's wrong most of the time. And I got to tell you, I don't have any problem saying this. I'm still very close with several of the NBA officials currently working games. Okay? They tell me that as a group, they cannot stand Katie because of her constant berating of the officials and the fact that she's wrong most of the time. Officials are okay to be criticized by the TV announcers if they are correct. In other words, if the announcers are pointing out a mistake that was made, which was a mistake, the officials are okay with that. The officials are not okay with someone like Katie, who constantly berates them and is wrong a majority of the time. That's what they have a problem with.
And I think questioning the call, right? If it is an actual call, that is what you're speaking to. But we're getting to a new level where non-calls, it's like, wow, that was a lot of contact. It sure feels like the East Coast basketball, the Kings just get pushed around a lot. And it makes me feel like, I can't tell how everybody else feels, but it makes me feel like I'm in the stands at a middle school game with a player's mom behind me. It's not what it should be in the NBA.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. 117-104 is the final. The Kings lose, and they have Oklahoma City and Minnesota remaining on this trip.
Can they come home with at least another win? You think they get 1 out of 2?
No.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I figured that would be the answer. Let's go to John. John, what's up, man?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hi.
Welcome on.
Grant, let me just say you got railroaded big time here in
Thank you.
Sacramento, and you deserve better. I wanted to
Thank
say that. And I just feel that the radio station company, I have no idea. It was Bonneville, correct? Was it Bonneville?
Bonneville International.
Yeah. Yeah, what a bunch of idiots. They really are a bunch of idiots over there. Anyways, I just wanted to know, I don't want to take a lot of your guys' time. I'm just kind of curious, Grant, what's your opinion on how did the Kings get better if they get rid of De'Aaron Fox? I mean, he is the star player. I mean,
Well, John, that's a really good question. And it's a question that I can't answer because I wouldn't know what they're getting back in return.
right.
I will only say this, and Ryan's pointed this out with numbers. I pointed out with my eyes, and so does Ryan, but he also backs it up with the numbers to support what his eyes are telling him. The Kings played very well, small sample size, in the games that De'Aaron Fox did not play. You could
That's
make an
true.
argument it was their best basketball of the year. And again, small sample size. So I don't know, John, what you would get back in return for Fox. I assume you would get some very good players, but it could make the team significantly better.
The Boston game is a good sample size. I think they didn't have him on that, and they
That's correct.
yeah.
Correct.
Well, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much. I enjoy your guys' show, and I'll
Thank you.
call back again. Thank you.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Love it. Thanks, John.
Again, it's a small sample size. And we're not sitting here saying De'Aaron Fox is not a very good player. We just don't think right now he's a good fit to the rest of the team. That's what we're saying.
And I guess partially that could be because of the injuries that he's dealing with. He's not at his best strength where he's going to the hoop as much. Clearly dribbling the ball is an issue from time to time. But at the same time, Grant, year 7, it's going to be 8 next year. And does a horse change its colors? The NBA is becoming a more 3-point centric league. De'Aaron's game seems to be floating that way as well.
I do not see De'Aaron Fox changing what he is already, meaning in his NBA career. He is what he is. And that's good. He's a very good player.
Sure.
But I don't see any part of his game really changing for the better.
Yeah, and age catches up to you. Now he's still coming into his prime, but will he still be willing to go to the hoop as much? We've seen that drag off in years. And by the way, if you are just tuning in today, Grant, we referenced this at halftime. This is from Chris Biderman. Thank you.
The Sacramento Bee.
That's right. So he spoke with De'Aaron today after shoot around, and he does have a preferred choice per the report. And the direct quote, "I expect the unexpected. I think crazier things have happened." That being said, Grant, De'Aaron is still maintaining that he has not requested a trade, and his wife has also gone to social media stating as much.
His wife needs to stay off social media. His wife needs to stay out of the public eye. His wife needs to go away from the public. All right. That's just stay off social media. That's number one. Number 2, I find it hard to believe that De'Aaron Fox did not ask for a trade, but he has a preferred destination. Okay. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And that preferred destination is San Antonio. And I told you that a month ago, that was number 1 on his list. He clearly wants out of Sacramento. Okay. Because if he didn't, he would have said that. But he didn't say that. He said, I didn't request a trade, but I have a preferred destination. That doesn't make any sense. Again, if he didn't want to be traded, he would have said, hey, I don't want to be traded. I don't know where all this is coming from. I love Sacramento and I want to stay here. He didn't say that.
No. Are we beyond the point of repair? You think Vivek tries to swing in and say, we can save this?
If he does, he's making a mistake.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Let's
And,
go.
and I want to get back to his career. He's in his 8th season, okay? He's been an all-star once, and he was added on to the team.
Yep.
He's only been in one playoff series in 7 years, this being the 8th. I don't know if he'll be in the playoffs this year. Hasn't won a playoff series. He's your best player, has been your best player, arguably. It's just time for a change. It's just time for a change.
Sacramento doesn't work with one star player. And I'm defining De'Aaron as a star in this sense. He's the number one, or has been the number one for the majority of his tenure. You look at the best Sacramento Kings teams, you have to look across the board and say, who is the number one there? You've got a bunch of guys that play together, and together they're better than any one player. Period. End of story. You can go back to the Richmond days. Same thing there.
Well, you can go back that far. You're absolutely right. No question about that. Hey, I want to tell you about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. They're available 24/7 for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Appreciate those of you that have reached out to talk about how much you have enjoyed New Works Plumbing. We appreciate that, and I send that along to the folks at New Works Plumbing. For all of your plumbing needs and repairs, they are available for you 24/7. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. And don't forget about Sunrise Landing, the newest residential community in Calusa. Go to CalusaSunrise.com. You can get all the information you need from Blazona Development and this great neighborhood in Calusa. Beautiful models, 6 to choose from. No Mellorews, no homeowners. Really good location. I mean, it's across from the Calusa Golf and Country Club. Good access to the major roads like I-5. Just go to CalusaSunrise.com. and you'll get all the information you need on Sunrise Landing. 117-104, the final. The Kings lose, and they score only 17 points in the fourth quarter against a team that was playing their 3rd game in 4 nights and played last night against the Lakers. Like, how does that happen? You score only 17 points against a team that is dog-tired?
They got their second win. They figured out the zone. The funny thing was the Kings in the first half on 20 buckets or on 22 buckets, they had 20 assists. The ball was moving, just something stopped. And in the end of the day, it's the worst loss or one of the worst losses of the season. GP, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, how you guys doing, Graham?
How are you?
Hanging in there. I didn't get to watch most of the game, but like you guys said, I guess, we're still having trouble with some of the things we should be cleaning up by now, in the season. I wanted to ask you guys, Grant, I know it's after the Kings game. I wanted your thoughts on Pete Carroll, my Raiders.
I'm not talking football on this show. I appreciate that. We'll be happy to do it on my show tomorrow if you'd like to call in, but I will not be doing it today.
Okay. As far as Fox goes, man, he did come out and say, he doesn't want to trade, but you're saying he has a preferred destination. That you're right. It doesn't make sense, and
he didn't say he did not say he did not want to be traded. He said he didn't ask for a trade.
Yeah, that part.
That's a big difference.
Okay. Where do you guys see, like, as far as him being traded, how soon or what kind of team? I wanted to ask you guys, how we got DeMar DeRozan from the Bulls. If you guys would be, what do you guys think about a trade with the Bulls in getting Kobe White from them and a Vucevic maybe to help us?
I need more than that for Fox.
Oh, see. I actually, if you got, and I don't know what their draft pick situation looks like, I think there's a couple pieces, including Kobe White, that I think would work really well here in Sacramento. Not saying they're De'Aaron Fox, but I think they would work really, really well.
Yeah, and plus they would have some chemistry already with DeRozan, so because he was already there. So,
what I do know is the Kings are 10th right now at 24-23, and they're even in the loss column with Golden State and San Antonio and Dallas is going to win tonight. So Dallas is going to pick up a game on Sacramento. So and you've got Oklahoma City next, who is 37-8. They're playing the Warriors tonight. You got to figure the Warriors are going to lose. And then they play Minnesota, who's won 3 in a row at 25-21 on this road trip. So it's things are not looking great, folks. They're not looking great. They're not looking great. You're 1-3 on this trip, with Oklahoma City and Minnesota coming up next before you go back home. So this is the time to be nervous if you're a Sacramento Kings fan, GP.
Grant, if we get that win versus OKC, let's see, somehow we pull that out, and get that win. Would you think this road trip's been? Would you take that? Let's say we win OKC and in another game. Would that be
I don't
okay?
know how you're gonna beat Oklahoma City and Minnesota if you can barely beat Brooklyn and lose to Philadelphia. I'm sorry, I don't think that's being realistic.
Yeah, no, just because we have played hard against OKC and they are kind of shorthanded, but hey, just being optimistic there. Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Yep, thanks, GP. I mean, I guess there's a little bit room for that argument. If the Kings made some shots tonight, Grant, they weren't 25% from the 3-point line. Things could have been.
He
a little
allowed
bit
Philadelphia
different
to score 60 points in the first half, Ryan, without Paul George and Joel Embiid, who played last night.
I agree with that. I'm just saying you can score with them. If you can't stop them, you might be able to score with them.
But then I look at the big picture, and I talked about this with you and Jerry at halftime today. Win or lose, the Kings are not playing well right now.
No, they are not.
So if you win, it doesn't count. If you win, all it does is camouflage your problems. Your problems are the same as they've been since the start of the season in October. Your problems with this team have not changed at all. It's the same problem. You don't shoot the ball well from 3, and your bench is terrible. That's been the one constant theme, or the two constant themes throughout the entire season, with the exception of a 10-day span.
I can't argue with it, Grant. I can't. Zach, what's up?
How you guys doing?
Hey there.
Yeah, I think, man, there's a lot of bad stuff going on with this team right now. It was funny. I was asking my friends a few days ago, what do you think the percent of the Kings making playoffs is? And we were getting, numbers around 50-50, stuff like that. And that was my number, 45 to 50%, maybe 2-3 days ago. Now I'm thinking it's about 30%. I just think that we just don't look good. And if we do get players that are win now players, then we're going to it's going to take time to adjust, right? And we're just not going to fix this thing in like two in a week or in one trade and stuff like that. I just don't see us making playoffs anymore. I think that percents just went way down, in the last 2 days, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think your percentages go up or down over a 2-day span in January. I think you have to look at a much larger sample size than this. The sample size, to me, starts in October, and the problems that this team has are going to keep them out of the playoffs, not the last 2 days.
Right, and the Christie honeymoon slowly dying just a little bit, I think, and just I just want to make a point though about Fox and his legacy. I want to ask you guys, who do you guys like? I know Fox didn't make us to a second round. He only made us to the playoffs once and stuff like that. But, in his first 4 or 5 years, who was his second best player until Sabonis showed up? I just want to give some props to him a little bit. I just think his team wasn't that good his first 4 or 5 years of his career.
I agree with that.
Like I can't I have to think really hard who his second best player was. Until
I don't disagree with that. Yeah. I would agree, but since Sabonis has arrived, that changed everything, right? They made the playoffs 1 in 3 seasons.
Yeah. We got to know what happens this year. I don't count the first 3 months he was here.
Here's the bottom line. Okay, he's been an all-star once. He's in his 8th season once, and he was added on. He didn't make the team originally. He was added on because of an injury. So keep that in mind as also.
No, for sure. I mean, I definitely think he's not like a number one player. He's definitely, I think he's a number 2, and it's just hard to get one of those number 1s. But for as far as trades, I've been looking at these trades for the last month or two. Do you guys think? Would you guys be excited about, because the Spurs are the number 1, so I'm gonna just throw them in there, like a Vassell and a Sohan and like two firsts. Does that excite the fan base? Does that excite you guys?
Are you talking about the 2025 and the 2027 firsts?
Yes. Like we get the Sohan is the wing that we've always, he can't shoot, but he can do pretty much everything else.
That's perfect. He'll fit in perfectly with this team if he can't shoot.
Grant, what are you talking about? They shot 11% in the fourth quarter from beyond the arc.
At least, because I think if the Kings are dealing with the Spurs, they're going to want Vassell because he's a win-now player and he can shoot a little bit. I think that's like one of the first people they want. And then the next player they'd want is either Sohan or Castle. Whoever the Spurs can give us, because Castle will be kind of the upside pick for a point guard that can be maybe a number 1 or a 2 in the future, and then Sohan is that wing,
See, if I'm the Kings and I'm looking at a Spurs deal, there's one name that I definitely want just for the upside value. It's Keldon Johnson. He's torched the Kings a couple of times this year. He's kind of got a body style. Long, lengthy. I think he's a defensive work in progress. He can shoot the 3 ball, but he's long enough to be on the wings. I would want him to be included. I guess I'm not opposed to Chris Paul for a year to be around Devin Carter and Keon Ellis, especially at $9 million or $10 million bucks for the rest of the season, and then you've got that expiring contract. But I don't. Yeah, Vassell's had injury issues. He hasn't been able to stay on the court, Zach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's still young. What is he, 24? He's a pretty good shooter. But yeah, it's a fair point. But if I'm the Kings, I want 2 of the 3: Sohan, Vassell, and Castle, and the 2 pick, and like 2. They're 25 and 27. But I just also, one thing to note, Vivek is going to want like a win-now player, an exciting player back for De'Aaron. So I don't know if like a third team will get involved, and like maybe like we'll get like a couple of those San Antonio picks and like Zach LaVine or something, where something like that is kind of arranged.
We'll see. I think it's going to take a third team, to be honest with you. I think it's going to, if Fox gets dealt, I think it will be a 3 or 4 team deal.
And you guys think that it could happen in the next 7 days if they haven't made a trade in like 2-3 years?
I think it's more likely than unlikely that it'll be traded before next week. That's my opinion.
And do you guys think, like, are you guys okay with like the Monty McNair, who his contract is, he could be fired in 2 months, is making this decision that decides the fate of the Kings?
You don't really have a choice. That's not. But let's say the answer to that question is no. What choice do you have? He's the guy.
And here's the other thing: Monty hit the ball out of the park with his only big trade that he's done. So, who's to say he can't do another one?
All right, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
It's a good point. I mean, it is a very good point. I mean, his track record with that deal worked out, and so you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Don't forget, I'm looking for a rant with Grant coming up here in a couple of moments. Give me some ideas for a rant with Grant.
I've got an idea for you. How about when you go to sign in to, I don't know, your Restream account? Let's just use Restream, Grant. And it makes you pick all the little pictures that have a crosswalk in them, or all the pictures that have a motorcycle. And like you're clearly picking the right ones, but still it sends you to another one. Like
it's aggravating as all hell. I know.
It drives me nuts.
I know. It drives me crazy too. It's just, I know.
I started giving the phone to my wife.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Bobby Marks put out a really good tweet just about Fox's financials and what they mean. We're not going to dig into them. We're not financial guys, but it is good information to have. The bird rights, or if he was to stay in Sacramento, which obviously does not seem to be the case, but that is what the financial situation is looking like for him. And to you, Grant, I was very confident that I didn't think this was going to happen before the deadline. But now that De'Aaron Fox has spoke about it, it does feel different. And even if it happens, do you think it's right for it to happen before the deadline?
is it right to happen before the
Is
deadline?
it best for the franchise? Because
Yes.
to me, it doesn't.
It's clearly best for the franchise. I think if Fox is on this team after next week, it's going to be a real problem.
Interesting. Do you
Yep, I
sit
think
him
it's going to
this
be a
week?
real problem.
Now that it's accelerated, do you think about sitting him?
I would sit him personally. That's I would. If I'm going to trade him as a general manager, I'm not playing him because I don't want to risk him getting injured.
I am starting to turn that way. You're getting some rant ideas. Rant about Rich Paul, rant about people unrealistically throwing out absurd Fox trade scenarios. I do think it's funny though that all these Fox fans, or a lot of like hardcore Fox fans, are like, he's a number one, but he wants to go to San Antonio to be a 1B.
I don't know.
Got to get a laugh out of that.
Yeah.
All right, Amir, what's up, Amir?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the Sacramento women. I mean, why are they so ugly? They're just on the side.
Clearly, Amir has not been to Sacramento. Guy, what's up?
Hey guys, how are you? Can you hear me?
We got you, mate.
I just wanted to make a couple of points. The first one, I agree with Grant. It's time to move on from Fox. Just get away from all the distraction, trade him. You know, he's obviously probably just wants out. And the second point, tonight, just with Sabonis, he wasn't contesting anything at the rim. Like, he wasn't even trying to contest at the rim. And he does that in a lot of games. I think they've got to find a four that can contest at the rim. Otherwise, you can't be successful with Sabonis. And I just wanted to say that with Ryan, you said that Keldon Johnson. I'm not a fan of Keldon Johnson.
Okay.
He's been a bench player on a bad team his whole career, so I'm not high on him. I'd rather the upside on Stephon Castle because he's a rookie and he's got a bit of upside. So yeah, that's just the points I wanted to make. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Sabonis's lack of effort at the rim.
It certainly was not a good game for him tonight, and we were both puzzled, mate, that he only took 6 shots in this game. How does Sabonis only take 6 shots in a game in 39 minutes? How does that happen?
Can't happen. And it's happened all too often, Grant. We've had this conversation at so many halftimes. Sabonis only had 4 shots in the first half, and he ends with 8 or 9. It's not enough. As for Sabonis not contending at the rim, I can't blame him for it tonight. The way they were blitzing in the first half, the big man is responsible for playing center field and running baseline to baseline. So it's nearly impossible when the Kings were running the traps in the first half and even towards the end in the fourth quarter to ask Sabonis to be in 2 places at once. I thought he did a decent job for what he was being asked to do.
Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it. Thank you. Dallas, by the way, has moved up to 8th in the West with the win tonight. They're 26-22. If you're keeping score at home, that's 4 games over 500. Phoenix is currently playing Minnesota. Phoenix is right now 24-21. If Phoenix wins, they would go to 25-21, and the Kings with the loss are 24-23. So with Oklahoma City and Minnesota coming up next, if they were to lose both those games, they could find themselves coming home in either 11th or 12th place.
Yeah, and think about the schedule that the Kings will have after that. We've believe they have the 11th toughest schedule coming home. In fact, if we go to the screen share really quick, let me get that. We'll pull the schedule up.
Yeah.
The Kings are going to see the Pelicans here a couple times in New Orleans, but they come home 1 day off, Grant, to Orlando, and then you are back on the road at Portland. You're home against New Orleans, back on the road, Dallas, and then New Orleans twice, and those are back-to-backs in New Orleans.
And New Orleans is, more of a competitive team now with the player. They almost beat Dallas tonight. Dallas is still playing without Luka, by the way.
Right.
So keep that in mind. They got a lot of injuries on their front line now. The
Lively
Dallas Mavericks. But think about this. New Orleans lost this game tonight and they scored 136 points. Think about
Ooh.
that for a minute. They lost 137 to 136 to Dallas. And Zion Williamson, by the way, played and had 29 points. They had Trey Murphy back, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, okay? And Jose Alvarado is back playing. So this team right now is almost healthy. They still do not have Brandon Ingram back, okay? But everyone else is pretty much playing. So this is not going to be easy for Sacramento when they play New Orleans 3 times before the All-Star break.
No, it's a great point because, Grant, the Kings are not that team anymore. They're not scoring in the 130s consistently.
No.
You're going to get a couple of those performances once in a while, especially if it goes to overtime. Think about this, too. The 5th, February 5th, back home versus Orlando. That's one day before the trade deadline. That could be a very interesting game for De'Aaron Fox.
Well, it could be an interesting game for this reason. If a trade is consummated and the Kings have Fox going with Herter and Lyles or some combination of that, Orlando's a very bad team, but you may only be having like 8 guys that you can play in that game. So keep that in mind too, coming off a long road trip.
That's a great point. You might be having a couple of the two-way guys. Shout out, by the way, to Isaac Jones. He's on his way to the G League All-Star festivities. Same with Scala BCA. So good for them. But Isaac, Mason might be getting some extended play in Sacramento that night.
That'd be great. Hey, I want to tell you it's time now for a rant with Grant. EDH Motors, Automotive Reimagined. And I'm going to give you their website because you can check everything out with what David and Adam do at EDH Motors. This is a long overdue concept. Just 2 guys trying to do something different and better. They have decades of experience in the automotive industry. You'll take delivery of your vehicle at the Auto Lounge at the El Dorado Hills Town Center. So that means no dealership. You don't deal with all of that. It's a great experience. And when you go to edhmotors.com, if you don't find exactly what you're looking for, don't worry. They'll get it for you. That's what's so great about EDH Motors. Go online, edhmotors.com. Check out everything that David and Adam can do for you. EDH Motors, Automotive Reimagine. Seems to me that it's panic time in good old Sacktown. The Kings are pretty much the same team that we saw in October. There have been some moments of excitement, like when Doug took over after the Lakers lost and the Kings went on that run. And now we're right back to where we were with Mike Brown, playing poorly, playing inconsistently, at times lacking effort, losing to teams that you should beat, not being competitive over long stretches of games. We talked about this with Jerry Reynolds when the Kings fired Mike Brown. We said very often that a coach would give the team oomph and a lift for a period of time. And then our experience was over a period of time, it's right back to where you were. Meaning that it really doesn't matter who's coaching his team right now. You have the same problems. You have a team that can't shoot the ball well from 3. You have a poor bench. You have an inconsistent bench. And now you throw in the De'Aaron Fox saga, distraction, call it whatever you want. The Kings right now are treading water without a life jacket. Oklahoma City and Minnesota come up next. And if you should lose both those games, and I don't see any reason to think that the Kings would win either of those games, I don't see it. This is not a playoff team. I'm looking at what's going on with around the West. And again, I can't forecast injuries. I just don't see the Kings being a playoff team. They weren't a playoff team last year with 46 wins. The Kings may not win 41 games this year. They may not even get to 500. Right now, they're a game over 500. They have a brutal schedule coming up. I don't see it. Like all of a sudden, there's not a magic wand that's going to appear and Kings are just going to start making threes and they're going to start playing defense. I don't see it. Could that change with the De'Aaron Fox trade, depending on the players you get back? Yeah, it could. But quite frankly, folks, I'm not optimistic at all. I'm just not. Why would there be optimism with the Sacramento Kings fans? Like, why? Why would you be optimistic? Based on what? I don't see it. And that's my rant for tonight.
Cannot win with him. Cannot coach with him. Can't do
it. I try to summarize your rants in a soundbite sometimes.
I like that. That's
sometimes
good.
I get close.
That's good. You know?
So this is actually, and hello from Vegas. I think there's two sides to the coin here, and Grant, jump in on this. The plus to sending a guy to a quote unquote preferred destination is if that team has some type of assurity or they strongly feel or have gotten that indication from the player's agent that that player is going to re-sign with that team, then maybe you can extract more on that deal rather than getting De'Aaron as a rental, Grant.
Yes, I would agree with that. Totally. If De'Aaron Fox is traded to San Antonio, he's staying in San Antonio. They're not going to lose him. They're not.
No. There is a handful of spots that I think a lot of NBA players would like to fill in San Antonio with the future around Victor Wembanyama.
No doubt about that. No question. All right, now it's the time for me to aggravate Ryan with this great food from Bennett's, prime seafood and steaks at Bennett's, 3 locations. Of course, we always talk about the West Side Grill in Rockland, but don't forget about the location in Roseville and in Sacramento. Same great food. Brunch available and is outstanding. Ryan was just there on Sunday for their weekend brunch. You go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com to make a reservation. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Make a reservation and more. It's awesome. Prime seafood and steak at Bennett's.
So good. So good. So let's assume, I'm going to ask you one more question, that the deal does happen with whatever team out there. How long do you think it'll take the Kings to integrate a few players into this system?
It will take a while because this is the time of the year where you don't practice a lot. So you got to keep that in mind. It will take a while. Now, there are players like a DeRozan, doesn't take long to figure things out. There are other players that take a while. It's a great question, but you don't have a lot of practice time right now.
Do you think it'll be a hard turn or a hard integration for the existing Kings to play without De'Aaron?
No, not based on what I've seen in the small sample size. It didn't look that way to me. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the ball moves much better without him on the floor. I think you lose something defensively. His defense, for the most part, has been there when he's not playing good offense. But
I would say this. If you do trade De'Aaron Fox, you are going to have to get another guard in return because Devin Carter has showed that he's really not ready yet for those type of minutes. So you would move Keon Ellis into the starting lineup with Malik Monk without knowing who you're getting in return. Agreed?
Agree.
All right, then you're very thin coming off the bench at the guard position.
Yeah, is there anybody besides Herter and Lyles that you'd say you're married to, that if a team really wanted to make this a big deal, you'd be okay throwing in out of that Keon, Keegan, Malik group?
I'm not married to anyone on the Kings at all. Personally, I no, not at all. You're a 500 team. You didn't make the playoffs last year. I'm not married to anyone on this team.
All right, fair enough. Let's bring Chris in on the conversation. What's up, Chris?
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing? What's up, Grant?
What's happening?
I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. Longtime Kings fan. I'm frustrated as hell. I'm getting really tired of these agents being able to it's a privilege to play in the NBA, you know what I mean? And if you get traded to another team, they shouldn't be able to say, oh, I'm not going to re-sign there, you know? And it's getting old, and the NBA needs to step in and do something about it. And I'm to the point where I'm ready to trade Fox, trade Sabonis, DeRozan, and just stockpile picks and start all over because what we're doing now ain't working, but we're never going to do anything unless Vivek's out of there.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I'm talking with Chris or if I'm talking with Barry White. Love your voice, man. I'll tell you the first part of your statement, that's not going to change. I agree with you about the agents, but that's just the way it is. It's the same way in baseball with Scott Boras, and it's the same way in the NBA. And it's unfortunate because I think it tarnishes the game, but there's really nothing you can do about it. I'm not as gung ho as you are to just trade everyone and start over, because I think you do have some good players. And I think that the Kings fans, there's just no way that they're going to stay around for another rebuild. They're just not, in my opinion.
I like some of the players we got, and I think if we trade Fox, we have to hit a home run. You know, we have to get the right players, but we have to get, you know, future draft picks, compensation. But I still think we have something. So, you know, I'm praying from here from Phoenix. It sucks watching this, but, you know, you guys have a great night, and I love the show, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Chris.
How about that? He'd be fine with just blowing it up and starting over.
Yeah, I'm not there.
I'm not either.
I don't think you're even close to that.
No, you're not. You're not.
I think we got to remember all roads were leading to this. It's accelerated, certainly, but this could be a much uglier situation if De'Aaron and Rich Paul were gaslighting the Kings.
Sure could.
You know, at least they're being upfront, which makes me wonder, based off of Chris's call, what the fan reaction overall when we're sitting here 2 years from now and De'Aaron Fox comes back to Sacramento. Is it going to be a positive reaction? Is it going to be somewhere in the middle? Because it's really that first big move during that Sacramento's experience during the player empowerment era, Napes.
Well, you asked what would the response be. In my opinion, it should be lukewarm at best. That's my opinion.
Why is that?
I just think that the beauty of the Sacramento fans is that they become so emotionally attached to their players because the Kings are so great with community activities, and it's a smaller type of a town, and there's a true bond there and always has been. And I think that's what's made Sacramento so special. But like DeMarcus Cousins should never have gotten an ovation coming back. He killed the franchise. He killed coaches. And yet fans didn't see that. De'Aaron hasn't done that. But De'Aaron's lack of professionalism over certain stretches has bothered me, such as last year blown off the media for 3 weeks. The way he's handled his press conferences a lot has bothered me. His body language on the court has bothered me. And I personally would give him a round of applause sitting down. I wouldn't stand up and give him a standing ovation, but that's just me.
There definitely is an argument to what you're saying about a little bit of a passive aggressiveness behind the scenes that sometimes peeks its head out. He's been here through some hard times. Look, I think for the most part, to the public, for what he's been to the community, he's been a consummate professional. But behind the scenes, if you've been privileged enough to get a peek like you have, and some others, you can see where some things I think have been pushed. Names.
When I was there with the team, I didn't have one negative thing to say about De'Aaron Fox. Not that I saw, both on the court and off the court. Loved the guy. Couldn't say one bad thing about him. And I walked up to him once and I said, hey, you know, you have a chance to have your jersey hanging right up there and be one of the great Sacramento Kings of all time. I told him that. I mean, that's how much I admired him. Loved talking to his family and his mom. I had nothing negative to say about De'Aaron. And I sit here on January 29th, 2025, acknowledging he's a very good player. I'm not going to come on here and say he's anything other than that. He's a very good player. But unfortunately, things change. And it's changed now. And it's time for the Kings to go in a different direction. And I know De'Aaron wants to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it's time to make it happen.
It's the only way the Kings get better, Grant.
Yes. Yes.
You have literally, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We're kind of at that point.
Minnesota Phoenix tied with 2:51 left in the third at 74. The Warriors are down 11 at Oklahoma City. That's who the Kings play next. Dallas won earlier, so keep that in mind. The Clippers beat the Spurs, so the Spurs now lose Their second in a row. Programming reminder, tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Sean Salisbury. We talk NFL playoffs tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Make sure that you are here for that. King's Court off tomorrow for Sean Salisbury. If we do a King's Court, it'll be tomorrow night. So stay posted in my X.
Sounds great. Everyone else, thank you. Not much more to add tonight. This is, in our opinion, one of the top 2 or 3 worst losses of the year. Right?
100%. Yeah, we actually have audio of Domas from the locker room because he only got 6 shots. Here we go. Not very happy. Feed the big man. Feed the big man.
Yeah, that's not very good. Yeah. All right. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.